This is my 2015 Maserati Gran Turismo, and for those of you that have not been following this journey, I bought this car about 7 months ago with no pre-purchase inspection and never even looked at the car. I just had it shipped out to me and spent my life savings on it. I have been driving this car with quite some issues over the time that I've had it and decided it's probably time to get this thing checked to know what's wrong with it, and well, there's a few things wrong with it. First, let's start with the first page of the inspection report. And well, some of these are not that bad. First of all, the windshield wipers, that's $60. I can do that myself for like $40. The cabin air filter and the engine air filter, looks like it's time to get that changed. Again, I'm not gonna pay a shop to do that. So far, I've done an oil change on this. I've changed the oil filter, I've done the brake pads, and I painted the brake calipers yellow. All that stuff is actually pretty easy to do. For the minor jobs, this is not a hard car to work on. But then we get to the more serious problems. So drive belts and valve cover gasket oil leak. Those are two. First of all, I was aware that this car had a valve cover gasket oil leak very early on when I first bought it, and I had the shop fix it. Guess how much that costs? It was $1,800 to do the valve cover gaskets, which by the way on most cars is like a couple $100 and not that hard of a job to do. The parts for the valve cover gasket oil leak to fix that is only like $120, but there are so many steps to actually access that and repair it that it's gonna take even an experienced mechanic around 5 to 6 hours to do it. I am the opposite of an experienced mechanic, but hey, I'm learning, so the simple jobs I can do myself. Then the drive belts, they were starting to look a little bit frayed, and so I had them do that as well. $800. And to even, first of all, get this inspection report, that was $550. So I had to dole out $3,200 for just two pretty minor jobs, if I'm being honest. Now here's the second page of the inspection report. And again, first of all, it starts with something pretty simple. Brake fluid, that's something I'm gonna do myself, pretty comfortable with that. Then we have the exhaust. And by the way, it's not like leaking. The problem is actually that it's not tightened down all the way, which can cause a little bit of a rattling noise. I've only heard it like once or twice, and that's not a big issue. Tightening it is very simple. So even though it looks red, it sounds like a big deal, it's really not. But then we have another big one. Apparently, the transmission pan is leaking fluid, and they quoted me $2,000 to fix that. I found transmission pans online for $120, and then actually replacing the fluid sounds like it's only going to be about $400 or $500. So that's another job that I believe I can do myself. I'll keep you guys posted and probably make a video on me doing these kinds of things that I have no experience with. But I did not pay the shop for that, and the car does still have that issue. Now, there is a massive repair that I haven't mentioned yet, and I really don't even want to talk about it because just acknowledging that I need to do that with this car is making me maybe want to sell it. But there's more I want to talk about with this car as well, so let's go for a drive real quick. So really, I took this car in because I needed, for my own comfort reasons, a second set of eyes on this car. They checked over literally everything here, but there's one problem. Do you guys remember the whining noise that I mentioned in previous videos? Here's what it sounds like. Well, I've now met up with a couple Gran Turismo owners from YouTube, glad I could meet you guys, and also test drove a Maserati Gran Turismo. There's no other Gran Turismo I've heard that makes that noise, and they inspected it and said, you know, we could try replacing the belts because they are a little bit worn and see if that fixes the issue. I approved that for $800, and not just because of the whining noise, but also they were getting pretty worn. It didn't change anything. The car still has that loud whining noise, and they could not figure out what that is, so that's a cause for concern. I gotta do this in pretty much every video, but oh my gosh, isn't this car just absolutely freaking beautiful? There is no better looking car for $40,000, and never again will cars sound the way this thing does. You'll hear it in a second. Trust me, I drive this thing in a spirited way every single time I take it out. But then the calipers are holding up very nicely. I painted these yellow, and it was my first time literally ever painting anything, so happy to see that the paint's holding up well. I expected it better hold up well. Other than that though, I mean, things are looking good, but we still have more to talk about in that one major repair that I mentioned. Plus we'll go over all the costs for what I was quoted on to fix everything. Let's go for a drive. Now, when I brought it into Euroworks, I also asked them about the blinking odometer and the infotainment screen not working. These are common electrical problems you'll experience if you ever own a Gran Turismo, and they did not have the tools to fix that. They told me I needed to bring it into a dealership to have a proxy alignment, and my biggest fear is bringing a Maserati into a Maserati dealership, because I think for them to even lay eyes on the car is going to cost several $1,000s. On a more positive note though, let's go ahead and start off with an acceleration. As always, can't get old, will never get old. That is why I say this car is more fun to drive than literally everything I've driven on this channel. It's just such a special feeling that this car gives you. But anyways, to address the absolutely massive repair costs that I was mentioning earlier, there is a catalytic converter efficiency code showing. And well, they double checked it and said, yes, there is. I knew that because there was a shop that did a little bit of an inspection before I bought this thing, and I did convince the dealership I bought this from to send me that inspection report. Well, they are asking for $8,200 to fix that. I'm just gonna drown out all my problems with the sound and the driving experience you get out of this car. If you add up every single thing that they mentioned is either in the red or in the yellow with this thing, you're looking at around $15,000 or $16,000. I asked them, I said, do I need to do the catalytic converter thing? I don't want to risk, having anything go wrong with my engine. And they said, I can't promise you that it's going to be perfect, but you probably don't need to do it. So I'm taking their word on that. The transmission oil leak or fluid leak being $2,000, that's a lot of money. Again, I'm going to look into what it would look like doing that on my own. That's something I have to address pretty soon here. That's, yeah, $2,000 is a hefty repair cost. As ridiculous as all of that may sound to you, I want you to keep in mind that this car brand new was $155,000. I got this thing for literally 75% off of MSRP. So even if I were to check off every single repair that they asked for, again, with some of them not even being absolutely necessary and a lot of them being easy DIY, you're still looking at a cost significantly below the initial asking price of a Gran Turismo. And again, I mean, this car with the emotion you get from driving it, the sound, the looks, all of that, this would be a fair asking price of $80,000. And I would still consider buying this thing if it was listed at $80,000. So with that in mind, I mean, yes, the repair costs in some areas can be absurd. Fixing this up it can be a lot of money, but with how easy this car is to work on and how cheap you can get them with not even really that many issues, it actually seriously makes it worth it. I really do mean that. I'm serious. And the one that I got, by the way, if you've heard me talk about this in previous videos, no pre-purchase inspection, and didn't test drive it or see it. I just had it shipped across the country. It's been through 5 previous owners. I'm the 6th owner, and yet it has this little issues. I use that term loosely. It drives just fine. Did I need to fix the valve cover gaskets? I did not. I could have kept driving it, but considering I do absolutely romp on this car and I plan on keeping it a while longer, it just made sense to do that. I mean, if it's been through 5 owners, 40,000 miles when I got this thing, and I've driven it as hard as I have for 4,000 miles, and everything's still pretty good, again, that kind of speaks to, yes, these cars are a lot more reliable than people make it seem. And again, with the occasional repair here and there, it is so worth the discount that you can get this car at. hope this kind of gives you some clarification as to what it's like to actually repair a Gran Turismo from an independent shop perspective. By the way, we're not talking about dealership prices here. Please do not go to a dealership with a Maserati. You will get absolutely ripped off. If you have a Maserati, feel free to drop in the comments what your experience has been. But other than that, I appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out.